Good evening. Today's topic we're going to go into is part two of um, the book that that Charlie Kirk I started reading his book about the Great Reset, which is more of a pamphlet. Which I went into part one last week and part two this week. Um, this one was definitely harder to write, harder to to prepare for because there's a lot of heavy information that I'm gonna go through today. It's good information, but you know how it is sometimes when something really something challenges you to the level that you're just like, yeah, I don't. This one is difficult to write, but the difficult ones could end up being the most rewarding because God does not want us to be comfortable, and that's one of the crazinesses about being a follower of Christ is he causes you to grow in such a way that you can't stay comfortable because the Bible tells us that because you are lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth. And I think that even ties into not being ashamed of the gospel of Christ if you truly believe in what you're saying and what you're teaching, and you're not only going to just speak the truth regardless of how difficult it is to receive or say, but also walk it out no matter how difficult it is to do as well. But with that said, we're going to start in Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, and then we will go from there. Okay. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has God said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die, for God does know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes will be opened, and you will be as gods, knowing good and evil. Now, I will probably go over this verse in many other lessons going forward or in the future because whenever the Bible talks about Satan being more subtle than any being that's ever walked the face of the earth, that's where I go back to. But yeah, but as far as I'm gonna get a drink of water and then we'll go into the observations for this one. Okay, we must all learn to dig deep into people and businesses to see what they are truly about. People have gotten more subtle, so we can't always tell at first glance what they are about. Most people operate at a need to know basis, and they only give you the bare minimum of information. If you don't know what questions to ask, you will not get the information that you need. Many times you don't get the information you need unless you fork up the cash. That's the way it is with a lot of businesses, sadly. They don't volunteer truth even if they know it's going to help you. Now, 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 to 12. So I gotta flip the Bible. Well, okay. It goes to the end. That works. Okay, 2 Thessalonians is before Hebrews. Okay, 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 to 12 is what I said. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but has pleasure in unrighteousness. I laughed because commonly damn is a cuss word, but in the context of this verse, it was not. So, like, oh my gosh, he cussed on live stream. Oh, the horror. Woe to them that call good evil and evil good. I don't call cussing good, okay? just to make it clear. We are living in a time where doing what is right is condemned and doing evil is justified. Evil is justified under the disguise of healing, doing what's best for me and not the good of humanity. 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. I usually don't do things this way because I'm not very not very good about just telling a point, which yeah, you'll get into all that, like all the points here in a minute. It's the joys of not. I mean, sometimes I'm organized in my podcast, and what I say. Sometimes it's just rambled, but it's all good. The hope and prayer that you get is that everybody gets like what they need to learn from it, because God works even when we're not the most organized. Thank God for that. This know also, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Okay. People have turned towards the very things that God tells us to turn away from. I mean, like all those things that we have mentioned are very like selfish. Loving pleasures more than loving God, heady, high minded. Being egotistical, like those things. Even though those people can do the right things, but do the right things with the wrong motive, and people like to people like to judge the motives and not necessarily not the actions so much. But it's like, I think it's best if we are grateful for the actions and let God judge the motive, because what looks on the surface like it may not be a good thing could actually end up being a really good thing. So only God knows that one. So it's best for us to look at the actions and let God deal with the motives. But government controlling everything. I mentioned briefly last week about the costs of everything going up faster than our wages. This is by design. The goal of the ones controlling the financial system want government control, which will directly lead to the mark of the beast. Revelation, the Revelation 13, and like with what's going on with all the stuff about the whole Epstein files, which I am all for holding people accountable. I mean, there's no crime against humanity worse than crimes against kids. Um, that I that there is no dispute of. But if everybody, and okay, just a second, and I'll elaborate. Because the most common and popular belief about the whole thing is hold everybody accountable, and you know even if it means collapsing the system. The problem with this is, and we deal with this in our personal lives, is every single one of us has more than one issue that we are dealing with, more than one issue that we do that is not pleasing to God. If God had us like deal with all of them at once, we would all die because the pain of having sometimes the pain of having to deal with one or two issues at once is unbearable. Having to deal with all of them at once is not a good idea. Same thing with running a nation. You people absolutely do need to be held accountable, but I think there has to be, and be praying for our leaders of the nation that they have the wisdom as to how to go about doing this in such a way that we can keep this world and nation running, because as we'll get into in a little bit, the United States is the glue that has been keeping the world's financial system afloat. If America collapses, we go to one world government, which is what um, the global elites want. But but the thing about that is it'll go to chaos pretty quickly doing that. So just be in prayer that the leaders are led in wisdom as far as how to go about doing this, like holding people accountable, but in such a way that we can keep this this ship running. But yeah, let's see. The government has never had our best interests at heart. They care about the interest of the global elite. Now, that there are 8 things that the Great Reset has wanted, which I will. And I'll talk about. I'll talk more about that here in a few minutes, but just my own personal observations about a couple of them. The you'll own nothing and be happy. On the surface, this seems scriptural. 1 Timothy 6:6-7 says, "Godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we will carry nothing out." However, there is a difference between being content because God commands it and being content because it is forced on you. Content looks different for a single person than it does for a family of 5, 7, or 10. Government doesn't care. They look at things from the lens of completely responsible spending without considering the truth that the unexpected happens. The difference between the rich and the poor is like the poor are content as long as they can provide for their families. Rich are okay if poor can't provide for their families because they still can. We're not the same. um, then the second one is the U.S. will not be the world's superpower. Right now, we are the glue holding the economic world together, as I mentioned before. Taking down the United States is crucial for the one world government to be enacted. Sadly, from a moral standpoint, there is a greater likelihood we will crumble from within than another power being able to take us down. I talked about a lot of that last week, and then hit on it. A little bit with the whole Epstein stuff. Um, but now the effect of the coronavirus pandemic, I laugh because I could probably go a whole hour rant on that because that messed me up psychologically in a lot of ways because working retail, you learn. Um, I learned through that experience that corporations have more power than governments do, because even when um, even when the governors were saying you don't have to wear a mask, you don't necessarily even have to social distance. Even when they said this, businesses could still enforce it. There were some businesses, thank God, Dylan's was not like that. As far as like, oh, if like that said, what, if you can't, if you're not going to wear a mask, you can't shop here. Um, but yeah, there were businesses that actually did that, and so so having to be around that and having to deal with that, yeah, it was not fun. But it was evident to me from the get go that the 2020 coronavirus pandemic was not about safety, but about social control. We had lived 6,000 years of civilization prior to 2020. That's give or take. If you believe in the 6 days of creation, which I personally do, 4,000 years prior to prior to when Christ was born, and then 2,000 years after, then what we had done for as far as health had worked pretty well. We never needed mass social distancing, forced or forced vaccines. We had known that if we get sick, go home, get well, and go back to work or school. That's common sense. But through excessive fear, the World Economic Forum funded such widespread lies that even the wisest people questioned their wisdom. If you left the state, they recommended you quarantine for 2 weeks. Even even road trips created panic. This was a plan to take down the United States, and if it wasn't for President Donald Trump, it would have. The thing it did do successfully is destroy goodwill between people. This is a key thing we haven't recovered from. Being able to talk through disagreements is a key aspect to the success of any organization, including a nation. Dialogue cuts down violence as long as both parties are committed to make steps necessary to avoid violence. Nothing can stand apart from the whole. Christians, no, no, wait. Christians' view is that we need others and God, love others is like is the fulfillment of the law. The World Economic Forum goal is the increased government reliance and for what the heck? Just a sec. Oh wait, I lost my place for a second. For humans to not be able to survive independent of the government. Were they to succeed, this would be a perfect setup into accepting the mark of the beast. If you're struggling and have a family, it's very tempting to rely on the government. It is easier, but not as rewarding. Now, what would happen if courts were unbiased? Let's see. The floodgates would open. The line of "stop taking the moral high ground, but fight fire with fire" would result in total chaos. We have to have people taking the moral high ground, as Christ tells us to do. That way, we hopefully get a chance to share why we chose this way rather than revenge. The buck stops here is not a cowardly mindset. It's actually courageous. You don't know the outcome, but it many times does start a chain reaction of doing what's right instead of taking revenge. Through Christ, we become a powerful nation. Without Christ, we will fail to exist as a nation. Now, Matthew 25, verse 14 to 30. Yeah, there's a lot of information. I'm actually a better conversation Bible speaker than I am a sermon speaker, because like thing about sermons is you have topics that you want to talk about, but if I don't literally write down all my notes, I will forget key aspects because there's just a lot to remember. No, I've known pastors who are who are phenomenal at writing down points and then being able to rehash from memory things that they need to talk about that. I'm not there yet, but I'm sure with practice I can get there. When it doesn't help that I'm almost 47, so things do change with that. You do change, you do kind of slow down as far as your memory goes as you get older, but I refuse to say that I'm old. My sisters would disagree, but you know what? They can be wrong. I love my family. They're awesome people. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them another 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained another 2. But he that had received 1 went. Just a sec, I had to lay my Bible down for a second. Still going? Yep. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants come and reckoned with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought another 5 talents, saying, Lord, you delivered unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 others. His Lord said unto him, Well done, you good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. And also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, you good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew that you were are a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not strawed. I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the earth. Lo, what you have is there's your there it is. Sometimes King James wording is trips me up, but I won't study out any other Bible with the King James. But 26. The Lord answered and said unto him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I didn't sow, and gathered where I have not strawed. You ought therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received my own with usury. Take therefore your talent from him, and give it unto him which had 10 talents. For unto every one that has shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that has not shall be taken away that which he had. And cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, the common lesson from this is that it doesn't matter whether you're a 5-talent person, a 2-talent person, or a 1-talent person. You using putting your talent to good use, and using it using it to further God's kingdom. But we cannot surrender God's trust into the hands of secularists or agents of Satan. We are duty bound to do otherwise. Obligations of followers of Christ. Study your Bible. Know the truth to apply. You have to know the truth in order to apply it. Discern God's will. Be prepared to act on it. Faith without works is dead. It's dangerous. It's dangerous, to have, to be able to talk about God's word, but then don't act on it. People are watching you more than you realize that they are. Christians do have, we are under a microscope. People watch how we treat other people. When you say, "Oh, love God, love others," is the way you're living, loving God and loving others. So it's like it's not enough to say this is a standard. Living it is where people realize whether you are a Christian or a follower of Christ or not. If you say to the mountain, "Be moved," but don't put actions to your faith, that mountain is not moving. Now, what is that? A humbling truth is more good is done by ill-intended people than those of pure intent. Now, Matthew 5:20 talks about that, how unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. But but yeah, but people will ill-intended people a lot of times will do what is right, as I said briefly a few minutes ago, to be noticed by men, to get the good jobs, and and the pats on the back and all that stuff. But while it's not our job to judge motives, just know that is there is that, like, even if, because you can kind of, you can tell. I was like, I was actually trying to figure out how to put that, but yeah, you can tell the difference between people who are doing good to be seen, like, by men, and people who just do good because it's the right thing to do. um and now back to the 8 objectives of the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, One World Government, yada yada yada. But yeah, we'll do Genesis 33:18-20. Going all over. Yeah, one thing that this verse is gonna say, and it's like it, because even though I am a believer in the, what do, like, the statement, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose their soul? Well, God encourages people to own, to own their own property. As long, he just doesn't want the property to own you. So it's like, essentially, when you own property, don't become greedy, be content, and be good stewards over what you have. But and Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came to Padan Aram. And it sounds like a song. No, maybe it's, like Black Betty, but anyway, wham a lamb. But anyway, stop it, Casey. And pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. I showed my Bible, but I know I'm not done with reading it yet, so I'll just have to open it. But but one of the things about, one of the one world government's goals is you will own nothing and be happy. Every form of totalitarianism has taken away rights to private property. We can't allow evil people telling us how to live our lives. If we give up ownership, Satan owns it. And that's even the way it is spiritually. When Adam sinned, he gave up, he gave up his God-given rights, which God purchased back through Christ. But we do the same thing in life as well. Like, when we hand things over to Satan, he owns it, not us. But U.S. won't be the world's superpower. Destroying U.S. status as superpower leaves the world without a God-centered leader, because the only nations, in the world that had God as the um, as the found blah, blah, blah. God as the founder was United States and Israel. I think I'll go into more of that here in a couple minutes. But let's see. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. Now, what is 1 Corinthians 3:16-17? Now, that's one thing I'm grateful to Charlie Kirk about. Well, there's a lot of different things I'm grateful to Charlie Kirk about, because he's he was a very wise, wise God fearing man. like he thought about and prayed about a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing about the whole one world government, because a lot of the stuff I've picked up, but he does more of a deep dive into it, which is a pretty cool thing. Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. Now let's see. We are encouraged to use reason, but not to make science a god. Satan's pathway runs through deification of science, masking the social distancing and vaccination will somehow do what 6,000 years of application couldn't. All of that to show even that didn't work. World can never trump God. Where I then number four is eat less meat. Now the whole idea with this was that cow farts induce climate change. If you cringe, don't feel bad. You're not the only one. I remember when I first heard about this, I was like, in that case, then all of us have a part in climate change, because we all rip farts. I mean, let's be honest here. But no, climate change is not as big of a thing as they have made it out to be, not even close. But yeah, First Timothy 4:1-5. I'm almost done. I've got about like a page or two more of more of information. But now the Spirit speaks expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats, which God had created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. For every creature of God is good, and nothing to be refused, if it be received with thanksgiving. For it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. The argument of eating less meat is crazy. Our family believes largely in natural supplements, and L-methionine is one that's like, I mean, I hadn't really even heard the term until about 10 years ago, but find out that L-methionine is in is in your hamburger meats, which is which I looked up. I looked up the benefits of L-methionine. Liver support and detoxification. It neutralizes acetaminophen overdose, which is acetaminophen is in your Tylenol. Antioxidant, which is protects cells from free radical damage, which like I hadn't really even heard of free radicals until the whole to the whole coronavirus pandemic with the and with the vaccines and such. But let's see here. We got skin, hair, and nail health. It's good for metabolism and energy. It produces creatine, improving muscle to fat ratios and boosts energy metabolism. It's therapeutic. It may help reduce tremors in Parkinson's patients, aid in treating drug withdrawal, supports cardiovascular health. Now, let's see. And, just a sec. Number five is billions of a billion people displaced by climate change. You could be preparing to go to Mars is six. Number seven is fossil fuels eliminated. Now, climate change, the natural disasters that we've experienced over the last 25 years were um, largely weren't due to climate change. It's due to the direct disobedience of an order given by God about Israel. Israel and the U.S. are the only two nations created directly by the inspired word of God. So we got Joel 3:2. This is the verse, one of the verses that talks about about not allowing Israel to be not allowing Israel to not allowing other nations to coerce Israel to divide her land, which Israel is meant to be Israel and not Israel and Judea. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, who they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Now let's see. In God and every nation that has coerced Israel to divide her land has had natural disasters that have happened the next day. Again, it's the book Eye to Eye, facing the consequences of dividing Israel. Goes from the Clinton year. No, it goes from the first Bush years, then Clinton, then the Bush Jr., and then some of the Obama administration. But yeah, it was a pretty eye opening book. Let's see. You could be preparing to go to Mars. The people that question the moon landing in 1969 are seemingly the minority. Whether or not you believe in the moon landing isn't as important here as the reason why. I set it up this way. I believe the Mars idea will only be possible through artificial intelligence. On Earth, we live in the Goldilocks zone. A little bit closer to the sun, we fry or disintegrate, and a little further away, and we freeze to death. Mars is the fourth planet from the sun. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. There's your 9 planets for the day. So there will be a quiz later. Nah, not really. Oh, come on, Casey. Don't make us do a quiz. I have enough of that going through school. But yeah, fossil fuels eliminated. The pursuit of solar energy, electrical cars, wind energy has proven disastrous. Electrical cars take too long to charge, and wind and solar energy isn't conducive to the fast paced society we live in and have gotten used to. Right, where? Right. And let's see. Then we got. And then what? Right. Then the Western values are tested to the breaking point. As mentioned earlier, Christ's values are necessary for a thriving society. Without them, society crumbles and the one world government goes into effect. Now, they're a quick rundown is like the whole idea is they want to divide the nation philosophically, Republican to Democrat, Christian versus non, male versus female, gay versus straight, racial divides, like hate a person, so let's go against them even if they are right. That's the whole mentality with that. We got it's there's a great distrust of authority. That's been pushed through social media to where you don't know what's true and what is not, so you don't trust anyone. You don't really know who to trust, really. Um, like swarm nations borders, we've been fighting the whole immigration deal, which I addressed a little bit last week. Is that if we are not here legally, shouldn't be here. Just like in a home, if you're not asked to be there, if you're not invited, don't go. And so but the people that enter this nation illegally have different ideas. Well, they're committing a crime. But yeah, so we've been having that as a fight. They want to weaken the military, unfair taxation, which the more you're taxed, the higher taxes, the less money you have take home, which to live off of. Encourage rioting and discourage accountability. We've seen that through the whole Black Lives Matter Antifa thing. They say peaceful protest when rioting is not peaceful protests. No matter how they want to, no matter how they want to dress it, it's not. Control balloting. They want the arguing over voter ID or not. You should have a voter ID. If you don't have it's like you don't have an ID, you can't drive. You you can't smoke. You can't drink. You same way with voting is voting is a better is a not really a better right, but voting is a higher responsibility, and so you should definitely have an ID for that. Um, and then control media. Media does need to be held accountable because as I mentioned before, the whole not knowing who's telling the truth or not. I mean, you don't even know if I'm telling the truth. I mean, it's like people believe in the whole phrase of people being brainwashed. Well, the key is though with my sidebar is you can research from the Bible, and back up the things that whether I what I say is correct, and so that um, it's easier to go back to it because the Bible does have a paper trail. But let's see. Let's see here. Oh, I read that. My favorite thing about watching Andrew Wilson debates is he asks for a person that doesn't believe in God to give him a secular worldview to determine right from wrong. And a lot of times they don't have they don't have a worldview that's outside of the Ten Commandments. And I've taught, and everyone that I've ever talked to refers back to the Ten Commandments, whether they realize it or not. It takes a lot of work to get away from the framework of God, which is implanted in every person's DNA. This is likely why it is impossible for those who have tasted the goodness of God but walk away to come back lest they crucify Christ afresh, which is Hebrews 6:4-6. Now, last thing I'm going to talk about with this is encouraging pushback. One of the most encouraging things I have seen over like the last few years, more so than any other time in my lifetime that I've been aware of it, is pushback against the unjust laws. Now, parents pushed back against the critical race theory in school board meetings, which is essentially white privilege, and um, if you're blacks, you're oppressed, and the whites are the oppressor. That's not the case. Um, and then with pushback against gender ideologies, we've only got two sexes, male and female. Men cannot become women. Women cannot become men. You can change the outside of a person, but you cannot change their genetics or their DNA. If God creates a person as a man, they're a man, no matter what, no matter how they. I like Charlie Kirk's um, description. No matter what costume they wear, and a woman is a woman regardless of their costume too. So so there's that's a moral absolute that is that it shouldn't be disputable. But so there's been pushback against that. Thank God, as far as people saying, "Oh, there's you're not going to teach me, you're not going to teach my kid that he should transition to a girl or she should transition to a guy." Parents are pushing back against that. Now we're the untouchable politicians have been elected out of office. An unjustifiable job loss due to standing against mandatory vaccinations. Now this is that was probably the saddest part about the whole coronavirus thing was, and I left Dylan's 2 months before they were going to institute mandatory vaccinations to work. Thank God they really didn't. They really didn't go through with that. But it was just a matter of. It was one of those things that was a final straw as far as me, me working there. Um, but yeah, let's see what else. And another key thing to remember is just like in the story of Gideon, like an army of 300 beat a much larger number of army, and you don't need strength in numbers. You just need people who are sold out to Christ and are willing to obey whatever Christ tells them to do, and they will get the victory. Obedience to Christ is better than sacrifice. There's a reason that well, I'll close on this fact, and it's because it's one of those things that has fueled me in a lot of ways in my life. Because I never knew this until I watched Facing the Giants, and I haven't really researched as far as whether the Bible does in fact say that 365 times do not fear, but that's a very important lesson in life, is don't allow fear to control you, because the thing is faith. I have a shirt that faith over fear, and we have to walk it out on a regular basis because they do not mix. Faith is what you're trusting in God regardless of what the situation looks like. Fear causes you to run unless you choose to run to Christ, and then because Christ is perfect love, He casts out all fear. But that is it. This will go down to date as my longest podcast. Thanks for sticking around. God bless you guys. Love y'all. Have a good week, and I will talk to y'all next Saturday. All right. Bye.